is just notice what's similar and different about these two graphs. So I've got them here in my workbook. And both say average household income measured in 2009 dollars. So that means they took into account inflation dating back from 2009. So it's adjusted for inflation. And we have the years at the bottom. The big thing I see different is the scale, right? Here, the top one starts at 48,000. The bottom one starts at 0. So 48,000 would be about here. Second graph. And this one goes up to 53. So 53 is going to be about here. So the top graph is just zoomed in on this little sliver in the bottom graph. So to me, it looks like we have here same data. But the top graph zooms in on the income. Now, we talked about in another lesson the idea of using data to make a point that you want to make. And with like changes in budget we talked about a while ago, if somebody used the percent change, they could make it seem like a smaller amount than talking about the dollar amount, talking about billions of dollars. So in this case, if somebody wanted to say, well, there hasn't been much change in the household income, they would use the bottom graph, right? Because in the bottom graph, it appears that there's not much change. Looks relatively flat. When we zoom in on it, it bounced around by several $1,000s. We're jumping from, it looks like, down here, a little above 49,500 up to a max of 42,500. So there's a jump in $3,000 of household income. That's, people will notice that in a year. So the top graph, there does seem to be, indicates a $3,000 variation. So then the question is the $3,000 variation significant out of, say, a $50,000 budget? And I think most of us that have to buy groceries would agree that $3,000 in a year is a big deal, right? So again, each graph shows something different. The bottom graph, it's not a lie, it's the truth. That's what it looks like. If we go all the way down to 0, it shows there's not much change, but the top graph says, no, there's a change. And they're both right, they just show slightly different versions of the data. Hey, Tony. All right, so let's go jump out of this for a second and look at the spreadsheet that I shared. And in the spreadsheet, I use the top graph to estimate the values. And that's what's here in the first graph, year versus average household income. Let's have, I'm making a copy. So what I want to do with this is I just want to reproduce the graphs that are shown in the worksheet here. We're going to build something that looks like these. Yep. Oh, yes. Go to this one here. Okay, and then just make a copy of this. Go to the file menu.
Oh, that's a print.
Go to the file menu, top, right there, and then choose make a copy. Yeah, so you don't need to copy and paste anything, and then just call it copy. Yeah, so just get rid of that and type it into there, and get rid of the first one you downloaded. So if you're a Google user, you want to make a copy of this, or if you're an Excel user, then from the original one, you're going to download it as an Excel file, and then you can either use it on your version of Excel, or you can upload it to your Office 365 to play with it in Excel. All right, so to make a graph out of this, like we did the other day, we just highlight the relevant data. So I'm going to highlight A1 through B12 here. And then either you can find the insert graph or insert chart button, or you can go to the insert menu and choose chart. In Excel, it'll be an insert menu and then recommended charts. And the computer guessed I wanted a line graph. And if I point to it, I can see there's some hidden points there. Now, again, Google doesn't make the same guess for everybody. It's likely it guessed at that graph for you, but maybe not. So if it didn't guess at a line graph, then in the chart editor, chart type, you want to select line graph or line chart. And then we're just going to pretty it up a little bit. So to pretty it up, we're going to switch to customize. And there are similar a menu at the top for Excel for this. And we are going to play with the series. And what I want to do to make it look more like the one that was given here, I want to add points to the line. So down here where it says point size, I'm going to try, let's see what 2 looks like. A little small. Let's try 7.
So do I just click on the link? Make a spreadsheet.
Yeah, so from here where it says make a spreadsheet, click that link, and that'll bring you to my sample spreadsheet. And then from there, you want to do make a copy so that you can edit it. All right, so again, backing up, highlight the data, then either insert chart or select the chart button if it's visible in your tools. Either one takes you to the same place. If it didn't select a line chart, then you want to find line chart. It should be in the suggested or further down. And then under customize series, we're going to put points in there. And 7 looked okay. And these are circles, which is fine. There's some other point types you could pick. So far, we've pretty much got the graph shown here, except they have a slightly different title at the top. They have household income in $2009, so we could put that title in. And there's 2 ways to do that. Either from the customize menu, you have titles here, and you could change the title at the top. So average household income, parentheses, $2009, close parentheses, or you can just double click on the title at the top and change it. Now, one problem with this that we pointed out on the first page of the activity is it shows the household income being relatively flat over this time, but I believe that there's a $3,000 difference roughly in the range of incomes there. So zooming in on that would be a good idea. So I'll show you how to zoom in, how to change the scale we have here. Any questions about how I get to this point here? Okay, so to change the scale, I'm going to jump into the, where is it? Vertical axis down here. And under vertical axis, I'm going to set a minimum value. So if we look back over here, they have a minimum value of 48,000. So let's do the same. The minimum value 48123, and they'll adjust it. And then Google guessed at fit for mine 53,000,
And let's see here, they went up to 53,000. So if your version of the spreadsheet didn't pick 53,000 as the top number, then set it explicitly as the max here. And so now we've reproduced it, and we can see that there was some significant variation if we consider $3,000 out of 50,000 significant. And I think most people that make $50,000 a year would say, yeah, that $3,000 is significant. And this version of the graph shows that, the other one didn't. So this is a meaningful graph in that regard. Cool, we made a graph. Now my graph covered up my data, so I'm just going to click on it and drag it over to the side to make the presentation look a little bit better on the graph. And then if I click off of it, the customize menu goes away. Now, once in a while, I make a graph, and then after I customize, I look at it, and I'm like, I don't quite like the way this looks. Like maybe I want to show not just the even years, the odd years too. So if you want to edit the chart, click back on it. And then in Google, there's the 3-dot button, and I can get back into the edit menu, and then I can go customize the part that I want. So for example, if I wanted to change, let's take a look at horizontal axis options. So again, to get there, I click back on the chart, 3-dot button, edit. And then in the customize section, I can play around. So let's see, horizontal axis, what options do I have here? I could set a minimum, I could set a max. Scale factor is a default. That's okay. Labels, number format. So I don't see the setting I want there to get, like say 2001 and 2003 in here. So let's go down to grid lines and ticks. Maybe it's in there. All right, so that says grid lines vertical. Let's try horizontal. Major spacing step. Maybe this is what I want, or counts. Major step. So I wonder if that is the jump from year to year. So I think they're stepping by 2. So I'm going to go try here, maybe step at 1, see if that changes it. Oh, there we go. So sometimes the setting I want is obvious. Sometimes it's not obvious. You got to poke around the settings. Excel, I find a little more difficult to work with because they have twice as many settings, which means any individual setting is a little harder to find. So I think Google's a little easier. But if you have Excel questions, let me know. Okay, I like that one. And again, sometimes you might put more marks down at the bottom and you go, oh, that's too messy. There's too many numbers. And then you could scale it back with the settings there. Cool, let's move on.